WWE announces that SmackDown will receive trade compensation for Jey Uso's move to Monday Night Raw, but who is going to be heading from Monday nights to Friday nights? Details on that, plus Gunther retains the Intercontinental Championship against Chad Gable, and he is set to become the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in WWE history. The next Saudi Arabian WWE Premium Live event date has been revealed. Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins' feud over the World Heavyweight Championship continues last night on Monday Night Raw. An update on the health of Piper Niven, as it was announced that the Women's Tag Team Champion was not cleared for action last night. An update on a Friday AEW Collision taping being announced, seemingly going head-to-head with Friday Night SmackDown. Damian Priest receives a custom Money in the Bank briefcase. Jimmy Uso versus AJ Styles is announced for Friday night on SmackDown on Fox, and several matches and segments are announced for Raw next week. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Jey Uso's return to Monday Night Raw, return to WWE television. Of course, we found the news out this past weekend at Payback. He had been traded from SmackDown to Raw, but it does mean that one WWE superstar has to go from Raw to SmackDown. Now, WWE has revealed more details regarding Jey Uso's move from SmackDown to Raw. On-screen authority figure Adam Pearce revealed on Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network that SmackDown will receive, quote, trade compensation for Uso, whose move to the Raw roster was announced during Saturday's Payback Premium Live event. Again, certainly very interesting. Now, Uso's shift from SmackDown to Raw was announced by Cody Rhodes during a Grayson Waller Effect talk show segment at Payback. Uso had claimed that he was out of the Bloodline, SmackDown, and the WWE on the August 11 SmackDown show, and his return to the company was portrayed as a deal brokered by the American Nightmare. After challenging Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at SummerSlam in a tribal combat match, Jey was turned on by his twin brother and long-term tag team partner Jimmy, costing him the title and the match against Reigns. The Bloodline had been comprised of Reigns, Jimmy, Jey, and Solo Sikoa, and the soap opera storyline between the four has largely carried the SmackDown brand over the last calendar year. Currently, only Reigns and Sikoa remain in the Bloodline, but Jimmy may be back in the group after his return to SmackDown last Friday. Of course, Jey kicked off Monday night's edition of Raw. He made his return to Raw after a brief hiatus from WWE programming and met a few old friends and rivals. Uso, as I mentioned, who quit WWE on the August 11 episode of SmackDown, returned to WWE this past weekend at Payback. The former Undisputed Tag Team Champion opened this week's edition of Raw and got a loud reception from the fans. Sami Zayn, who of course has had an infamous love-hate relationship with Jey, welcomed the former Bloodline member and said that he's happy to have Jey on the red brand, but many on Raw, on the roster, may not give him the same warm welcome. Zayn offered a handshake, which Jey refused at first, but then the two hugged it out. As Jey was heading backstage, Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle, who was set to wrestle the Viking Raiders in a tag team match, stared down Jey, obviously because of their shared history with them. Zayn had to act as peacemaker, telling them that it was Jey's first night back. Jey has history with McIntyre and Riddle, as he interfered and cost McIntyre his match against Roman Reigns at Survivor Series 2020, while he and RK Bro also lost to the Bloodline at this year's WrestleMania Backlash, or last year's WrestleMania Backlash rather. Riddle, meanwhile, also lost the Raw Tag Team titles to the Usos last year, which he held with Randy Orton. Later in the show, Dominic Mysterio met Jey Uso and empathized with his current situation, as he told him he too didn't have a family before he joined the Judgment Day. Dominic then offered Jey a place in the Judgment Day and gave him some time to make the decision. During the show, as I mentioned, Adam Pearce also told Jey Uso that one member of the Raw roster will be transferring to SmackDown following Jey Uso's switch. So the question becomes, who is going to be headed to SmackDown as a replacement to Jey Uso? Is it going to be the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes? Many are speculating that Rhodes will be transferred to SmackDown to finish his story and once again challenge Roman Reigns for the undisputed Universal Championship in the future. Let me know your thoughts, predictions, as always, in the comment section below. Now, Gunther has retained his Intercontinental Championship and is set to become the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in WWE history. The Ring General will march into history as WWE's longest reigning Intercontinental Champion ever. Gunther defeated Chad Gable in the main event of Monday night's edition of Raw to retain the title, his final hurdle en route to the record. At 452 days and counting, Gunther's reign will eclipse the Honky Tonk Man's 454-day reign later this week. Gable's wife and children were shown watching from the front row as he performed in the biggest singles match of his career. After more than 15 minutes of action, the closing stretch saw Gunther survive Gable's chaos theory and an ankle lock before he cut off the rally with a vicious sleeper suplex, followed by a powerbomb and a lariat for the pinfall. Gunther's Intercontinental Championship reign began on June 10, 2022, when he dethroned Ricochet on an episode of SmackDown. Since then, the leader of Imperium has successfully defended the gold in 15 championship matches, including high-profile defenses against Sheamus at Clash at the Castle last year, a three-way against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 39 as well. Gable, meanwhile, has still never held singles gold in WWE. However, he is a two-time Raw Tag Team Champion, as well as a former SmackDown Tag Team Champion and NXT Tag Team Champion too. What did you think of the match, and what do you think of Gunther breaking the record? Now let's switch gears here and talk about WWE in Saudi Arabia, because WWE's next visit to Saudi Arabia is set. PW Insider is reporting that Crown Jewel will be held on Saturday, November 4 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Which venue in Riyadh will host the event is currently unclear as of this recording. The 2022 and 2018 editions of Crown Jewel were held at the King Saud University Stadium. Riyadh's King Fahad International Stadium and Mohammed Abdu Arena have also hosted the event, so we don't really have an update in terms of the location just yet. Last year's Crown Jewel saw Roman Reigns defend the undisputed Universal Championship against Logan Paul in the main event. The latest edition of Crown Jewel is part of the 10-year agreement between WWE and Saudi Arabia's General Sports Authority for the company to hold major events in the kingdom. However, the relationship between WWE and Saudi officials has changed since their agreement began in 2018. WWE's stock price actually plummeted last week after news that the Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the PIF, purchased a minority stake in the Professional Fighters League, the PFL. It's a potential competitor to the UFC, which will soon merge with WWE under the ownership of Endeavor and the new corporate umbrella TKO Group Holdings. The Saudi PIF was reportedly interested in purchasing WWE before the company reached its sales agreement with Endeavor back in April. So that certainly is one to watch, WWE's agreement and arrangement with Saudi Arabia moving forward. Now, this past weekend at Payback, the main event of the show, of course, was for the World Heavyweight Championship as Seth Rollins successfully defended his title against Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura took part in his first ever WWE Premium Live Event main event last Saturday when he challenged Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship at Payback in Pittsburgh. While Nakamura came up short on the night, he jumped Rollins on his way to the back, seemingly continuing the pair's rivalry. Rollins came to the ring last night on Raw, where he called out Nakamura to finish the fight. Rollins told Shinsuke he would give him another title opportunity if it meant he could get his hands on him again, which Nakamura rejected. Rollins then chased after Shinsuke, with the two men fighting on the ramp before security came out to break up the fight. Shinsuke ended up taking out security before dropping Rollins with a Kinshasa to his injured back. Ricochet came out to help Seth, which led to an impromptu match between Ricochet and Nakamura on the show. Now, as for why he said no, Shinsuke Nakamura left a lot of fans confused on last night's Raw, saying that he had turned down and rejected the proposed title match. As I mentioned, he went on to face Ricochet and attacked Rollins in the segment after a disqualification loss to Ricochet. In WWE's digital exclusive, Nakamura explained why he said no to Rollins' proposed title match. Nakamura said that he fights on his terms and that he wants to continue to injure Seth's back before he jumps back into the ring to take his title. So, seemingly this one is far from over. Where do you think they go next? And is there a possibility that Nakamura could be the one to end Rollins' title reign? Now, some people are concerned about Piper Niven, about the curse when it comes to the Women's Tag Team Championships. Piper Niven reportedly has an illness that kept her out of this week's edition of Raw, but she is expected to recover soon. As per Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Niven, who is one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions, will not have to vacate the title and will be fine. The report further states that she should return to WWE television in 1 or 2 weeks. Adam Pearce announced on Raw after Payback that Niven hasn't been cleared to wrestle on this week's show. Niven's tag team partner Chelsea Green featured in a singles match on the show facing Raquel Rodriguez, who lost to Rhea Ripley at Payback. Rodriguez made light work of Green, and then she announced that she would get her rematch against Ripley on next week's show. As I mentioned, there was some concern because the women's tag team titles have been somewhat cursed over the last year or so, with a few title reigns ending because of injury, while some champions have had to be replaced. Lita, who held the title of Becky Lynch, was replaced by Trish Stratus due to injury. The next champions, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, had to relinquish the title following the latter's injury. The current women's tag team title reign has also been marred by injury, as Chelsea Green's original partner Sonya Deville suffered an injury which forced her to vacate the title, with Niven taking her place. The women's tag team Team Championships haven't been defended since Green and Deville actually won the titles on the July 17 edition of Monday Night Raw. But thankfully, with Piper Niven, it's not too serious. Switching gears here, let's talk about AEW, because AEW and WWE are set to go head-to-head once again in a few months' time. AEW has announced a special Friday night episode of Collision for November. It was revealed that AEW Collision and AEW Rampage will both take place from the Kia Forum in Inglewood, California on Friday, November 17. Both shows are happening on the eve of Full Gear, which is also being held at the Forum. The 1 week move from Saturday to Friday means that Collision will be airing head-to-head with WWE SmackDown on November 17. Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast reported over the weekend that Warner Bros. Discovery was told late last week the soft roster split for Collision would be ending. AEW, of course, announced on September 2nd that CM Punk's contract had been terminated by the promotion. Now, as for this upcoming head-to-head, it's quite interesting because, according to Dave Meltzer, plans are neither finalized or official, with Meltzer saying, quote, most likely it's not official, but they're taping Collision on Friday nights, and right now scheduled tentatively 8 to 10 Friday night for Collision, and then 10 to 11, which would be Rampage, because they're doing the pay-per-view on Saturday that week. Both of them are supposed to be live, but it's not official. I was told that is likely what the plan is going to be, but until it's official, it's just likely, but that is the plan at the moment. So as of right now, according to Meltzer, the plan is actually to have Collision live, head-to-head with SmackDown, and then Rampage will follow it afterwards in its usual time slot. Going back to Raw last night, we've got a new Money in the Bank briefcase for Damian Priest. Senior Money in the Bank Damian Priest captured the briefcase at Money in the Bank in London on July 1st. Since then, Priest has been butting heads with stablemate Finn Balor and his friend JD McDonough, the latter who said that Priest should get rid of the briefcase to ease tensions. Well, at Payback, McDonough helped the Judgment Day capture the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. On last night's Raw show, McDonough interrupted a promo from the Judgment Day where he once again told Priest to get rid of his briefcase. McDonough said Priest didn't need his briefcase anymore, he needed the one that JD was holding. McDonough then revealed a new purple Money in the Bank briefcase with the word Senior on the front for Priest. The segment was interrupted by Sami Zayn, who challenged JD McDonough for a match later on in the evening. What do you think of the custom Money in the Bank briefcase? Let me know your thoughts about that, as always, in the comment section below. Now, talking about SmackDown, we know Jey Uso's on Raw, Jimmy Uso still on SmackDown, and Jimmy Uso versus AJ Styles has been added to the lineup for Friday's September 8 edition of the show. The match was announced during a video on Monday's edition of Raw promoting this week's SmackDown show and follows up on last week's SmackDown. On last week's SmackDown episode, Styles and Uso got into a shoving match backstage. Styles laid out Uso, then Solo Sikoa made the save. Styles and Sikoa faced off in the main event of SmackDown, where Uso interfered to cost Styles the match. The video promo for SmackDown also promised the fallout from Saturday's Payback pay-per-view would be felt on the show, a women's division tag team match with Charlotte Flair and Shotzi taking on Io Sky and Bayley of Damage Control has already been announced for the show too. So does this mean that maybe the next challenger for Roman Reigns' undisputed Universal Championship is going to be the Phenomenal One? We'll have to wait and see. Finally, we've got some segments and matches announced for Raw next week. A Women's World Championship match plus the return of Cody Rhodes has been announced for Monday, September 11th episode of Raw. As revealed during this week's Raw, Rhea Ripley will defend the Women's World Championship against Raquel Rodriguez on next week's show. Ripley's Judgment Day cohort Dominic Mysterio will be banned from ringside during the match. Ripley defended the title against Rodriguez at Saturday's Payback event, retaining after interference from Mysterio. Also set for next week, Cody Rhodes will return to Raw after 2 weeks away from the show. Rhodes did appear on the August 25 SmackDown tribute show to Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk, and also appeared at Payback in a talk show segment with Grayson Waller and Jey Uso, where it was portrayed that Rhodes had brokered a deal to move Uso from SmackDown to the Raw brand. However, some are thinking that maybe this could be a time in which Cody Rhodes says farewell to Raw after heading to SmackDown. But there you go, guys. That's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.